Hey there, angry faithful. I just wanted to drop in, bend your ear a little bit, get your attention. So if you're not listening, drop what you're doing and pay attention to me because I'm here to inform you that not only can you get your daily, maybe if you're binging it, I'm not sure, that's entirely up to you, but you can multiply your doses of angry me fuckery by paying attention to all of the platforms upon which you can find either the dulcet tones of my voice and David's voice or my pretty face and David's not so pretty face. Anyways, digressing, we not only on we are on YouTube, we are on Spotify, we're on Rumble, we're on Google, Apple Podcast. We have a TikTok page. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and of course Facebook. So if you find yourself fuckery deprived, curl up with a nice hot mug of shut the fuck up and just listen. Open those ear holes and be prepared to be cream pied like it's the first time. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, angry faithful. Today on Psychos and Sociopaths, we did you press a button?
I did. Did you not hear the clap?
Oh, there we go. We got the claps.
See? We recorded live in front of a soundboard.
Yeah. Today is a special one. We're actually going off of Bonnie and Clyde and doing them. And this is a long one. We can talk about a good amount of time with this one because it was very documented. I mean, how many movies have there been in like
let me see. There was Bonnie and Clyde back in the 60s. There was 2019, there was The Highwaymen. That had Woody Harrelson and Kevin Costner in it.
Yeah. That was a really good one. Because
I started that and I didn't finish it because I was just like, eh. But
I watched like twice.
Here.
It was that good.
Yeah, there was. Let me see. There was a movie done in 58. There was a movie done in 67. Then there was 2019, The Highwaymen. Let's see here. Tons of songs. There was a television movie back in 92. There was a mini series in 2013. 2009. It was the subject of a program in the BBC series Time Watch. Let's see here. 2016, Timeless. There was an episode of Timeless. That was a great show, by the way.
Yeah, it sucks. It only went like 2 seasons.
Yeah, but you know. And then Legends of Tomorrow touched on Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
And then the story of Bonnie and Clyde is parodied in Love Springfieldian style, an episode from the 19th season of The Simpsons with Marge and Homer in the titular roles. Titular type, yeah. Anyway, plus there was like books, there was theater productions.
Yeah. They were infamous nonetheless.
Yeah. But and the ambush sites marked with a marker in Louisiana, but I mean that thing's been picked over so much by souvenir hunters.
Yeah. I wonder that's an interesting thought. I mean, there are so many freaking bullets on that one. You think there's still casings there?
I doubt it.
Yeah, true. Jeez. Yeah.
And even if there were, there wouldn't be much of them left, I would think.
No, it's brass, dude. Brass stays.
Yeah, that's true. That is brass. But with the amount of metal detectors that have been over that place, it's probably clean.
It probably is. You might be one of those weird things. It's like, oh, dude, if we went to the site, we found a brass casing. And it was to another crime. Our fingerprints are on it. Now we're on for the law. Anyways, Bonnie.
It's Bienville Parish in Louisiana.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's going to be too far from where I'm going to be living. It's in the northwestern portion of Louisiana. The parish seat is Arcadia. Well,
It
I
might be more
guess.
close. It might be closer to Dallas, honestly, because they showed on Highwayman the actual
Right.
road that would actually travel on, because they would go through from Dallas to Louisiana
You're missing
up
the
to.
point there, guy.
But yeah, I got you.
I was saying an Angry Me road trip.
Oh yeah, true. We can do that.
Fucking hello, McFly. Is this thing on?
God, I hate you sometimes. Fuck, I hate you.
Yeah. Look at Johnny fucking bringing the show to a screeching halt.
Anyways,
Oh, see, look, you guys are off. Look, you're all fired.
yeah. But anyways, Bonnie Elizabeth Parker and Clyde Chestnut Barrow.
Borrow, yeah.
Okay. I didn't have to use the Stephen Hawking voice. That's the subject of today. They were an American crime couple. Let me see here. I wonder how many people they actually killed.
I think it was
I know it was several cops. This is the reason why they. Well, we'll just get into it. There were
11,
11. Okay.
including 9 law enforcement officers.
Okay.
During a 2-year reign of criminal activity.
They're a gang in the Great Depression, and they're a couple of bank robbers who became notorious because of they weren't able to be caught, and their death. Going off of Bonnie Parker, Bonnie Elizabeth Parker was born in 1910 in Rana, Texas. The second of 3 children. Her father, Charles Robert Parker, was a bricklayer who died when Bonnie was 4 years old. Her widowed mother, Amelia, moved her family back to her parents' home in Cement City, an industrial suburb of West Dallas, where she worked as a seamstress. As an adult, Bonnie wrote poems such as The Story of Suicide Saul and The Trails In, the letter more commonly known as The Story of Bonnie and Clyde. In her second year in high school, Parker met Ray Thornton. The couple dropped out of school and married in September 25th, 1926. 6 days before her 16th birthday, which back then it was kind of common. Their marriage was married by his frequent absence and brushes with the law, which I guess you like bad boys. Every woman does at that age.
They all do.
Yeah.
I got to get me a bad boy. I can fix him. Oh, God.
Fuck that. It proved to be short. Well, guys do the same thing. I mean, shit, they end up marrying like. Oh man.
All right. Just stop. Time out
Yeah.
on that one because that is going to take us down a road that we may not be able to find enough room to do a 15-point turnaround, let alone a fucking 3.
I see us if we actually finish that. I see that one scene off of Austin Powers where you get stuck in the hallway with that freaking golf cart.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways,
Or irrevocably or cock blocked like Basil did with did Austin Powers and the twins.
yeah.
Basil, they're twins.
Parker was still
Fuck
wearing. Parker was still wearing Thornton's wedding ring when she died. Thornton was in prison when he heard of her death, committing. I'm glad they jumped out like they did. It was much better than them being caught. Sentenced for 5 years of robbery in 1933, and after attempting several prison breaks from other facilities, Thornton was killed while trying to escape from Huntsville State Prison. Sorry. In October 3rd, 1937. After the end of her marriage, Parker moved back in with her mother, worked as a waitress in Dallas. One of her regular customers was a postal worker, Ted Hilton. In 1932, he joined the Dallas County Sheriff's Department and eventually served as member of the posse to kill Bonnie and Clyde. Parker briefly kept a diary early in 1929 when she was at the age of 18, writing of her loneliness, her impatience with life in Dallas, and her love of photography. Go with Clyde.
Now, Clyde Barrow, or Clyde Chestnut Barrow, was born in 1909 into a poor farming family in Ellis County, Texas, southeast of Dallas. He was the fifth of 7 children. Henry Basil Barrow and Cumi Talitha Walker. The family moved to Dallas in the early 20s as part of a wider migration pattern from rural areas to the city, where many settled in the urban slum of West Dallas. The Barrows spent their first months in West Dallas living under their wagon until they got enough money to buy a tent. Barrow was first arrested in late 1926 at the age of 17 after running when police confronted him over a rental car that he had failed to return on time. His second arrest was with his brother Buck, soon after for possession of stolen turkeys. Barrow had some legitimate jobs during 1927 through 1929, but he also cracked safes, robbed stores, and stole cars. He met 19-year-old Parker through a mutual friend in January of 1930, and they spent much time together during the following weeks. Their romance was interrupted when Barrow was arrested and convicted of auto theft. Barrow was sent to Eastham Prison Farm in April of 1930 at the age of 21. He escaped from the prison farm shortly after his incarceration using a weapon Parker smuggled to him. He was recaptured shortly after and sent back to prison. Barrow was repeatedly sexually assaulted while in prison, and he retaliated by attacking and killing his tormentor with a pipe, crushing his skull. This was his first murder. Another inmate, who was already serving a life sentence, claimed responsibility. In order to avoid hard labor in the fields, Barrow purposely had 2 of his toes chopped off in 1932 by another inmate or himself. Because of this, he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. However, Barrow was set free 6 days after his intentional injury. Without his knowledge, Barrow's mother had successfully petitioned for his release. He was paroled from Eastham on February 2nd, 1932. Now a hardened and bitter criminal, his sister Marie said, "Something awful sure must have happened to him in prison because he wasn't the same person when he got out." Fellow inmate Ralph Fultz said that he watched Clyde change from a schoolboy to a rattlesnake. In his post-Eastham career, Barrow robbed grocery stores and gas stations at a rate far outpacing the 10 or so bank robberies attributed to him in the Barrow gang. His favorite weapon was the M1918 Browning automatic rifle, or the BAR. Nice weapon of choice, by the way. According to John Neal Phillips, Barrow's goal in life was not to gain fame or fortune from robbing banks out to seek revenge, but to seek revenge against the Texas prison system for the abuses that he had suffered while serving time.
Several accounts described Parker and Barrow's first meeting. Most credibly stated that they met on January 5th, 1930, at the home of Barrow's friend, Clarence Clyde, at 105 Herbert Street in West Dallas. Barrow was 20 years old and Parker was 19. Parker was out at work and staying at his female friend to assist her during her recovery from a broken arm. Barrows dropped by the girl's house while Parker was in the kitchen making hot chocolate. Both were smitten immediately. Most historians believe that Parker joined Barrows because she had fallen in love with him. She remained his loyal companion as they carried out their many crimes and awaited the violent death that they viewed was inevitable. Now, 2 things on this, though. One, it just reminds him chopping off his feet. Just reminds me of the story
His toes.
His toes is a story that Kai tells about this kid when he was in county lockup, and this guy got him to suck his dick because he had to do he's like, oh yeah, you're going to the big house, so you're gonna have to learn how to do a dick eat a dick sandwich like constantly because that's all you're gonna be doing. And he got released like the next day. Yeah, and second, for what it's worth, I actually read an article when I was doing some research that throughout the whole thing it was actually legitimately Bonnie that initiated a lot of the gruesomeness of their crime spree. But reading this, it might be like I might just someone's opinion type deal, and their opinion was very wrong. But armed robbery and murder. Starting in 1932, the early robberies and murders. After Burroughs' release from prison in February of 1932, he and Foltz began a series of robberies, primarily of stores and gas stations. Their goal was to collect enough money and firepower to launch a raid against East Ham Prison. On April 19th, Parker and Foltz were captured in a failed hardware store burglary in Kaufman, in which they had intended to steal firearms. Parker was released from jail after a few months. Then the grand jury failed to indict her. Foltz was tried, convicted, and served time. He never rejoined the game. Parker wrote poetry to pass the time in Kaufman County Jail and reunited with Burrough, Clyde. I'm just going to say Clyde whenever I read that. They always use like last names, and it pisses me off on some of this stuff. Within a few weeks of her release, on April 30th, Clyde was a getaway driver in a robbery in Hillsborough, during which store owner J.N. Butcher was shot and killed. Butcher's wife identified Clyde from the police photographs as one of the shooters, although he had stayed inside the car. On August 5th, Clyde at Richmond Hamilton and Ross Droyer were drinking moonshine at a county dance in Stringtown? Okay, Stringtown, Oklahoma. When Sheriff C.G. Maxwell and Deputy Eugene C. Moore approached them in the parking lot, Clyde and Hamlin opened fire, killing Moore and gravely wounding Maxwell. Moore was the first law enforcement officer who Clyde and his gang killed. They eventually murdered 9. On October 11th, they allegedly killed Howard Hall at his store during a robbery in Sherman, Texas, though some historians considered this unlikely. W.D. Jones had been a friend of Clyde's family since childhood. He joined Bonnie and Clyde on Christmas Eve in 1932 at the age of 16, and the three left Dallas that night. The next day, Christmas Day of that year, Jones, Clyde, Jones and Clyde murdered Donnelly Johnson, a young family man, while stealing his car in Temple. Clyde killed Trenton County Deputy Malcolm Davis on January 6, 1933, when he, Parker, and Jones wandered into a police trap set for another criminal. The gang had murdered 5 people since April. I don't know why I said October. My mind just blinked out there.
Okay. My turn. Okay. Where'd you end up at?
1933, Buck and Blunt's Burroughs joined the gang.
Okay. All right. Let me get into my reading voice. Okay, here we go. Excuse me. This is part of the whole process of getting into talking into a microphone, being palatable for your ears. in hopes that one day my advocation becomes a vocation. All right. On March 22nd, 1933, Clyde's brother Buck was granted a full pardon and released from prison. He and his wife, Blanche, set up housekeeping with Bonnie, Clyde, and Jones in a temporary hideout at 3347 and a half Oak Ridge Drive in Joplin, Missouri. According to the family sources, Buck and Blanche were there to visit. They attempted to persuade Clyde to surrender to law enforcement. The group ran loud, alcohol fueled card games late into the night in the quiet neighborhood. Blanche recalled that they had bought a case of beer a day. The men came and went noisily at all hours, and Clyde accidentally fired a BAR in the apartment while cleaning it. No neighbors went to the house, but no one reported suspicions to the Joplin Police Department either. The police assembled.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Slow your roll there, guy.
I know.
The police assembled a 5-man force in 2 cars on April 13th to confront what they suspected were bootleggers living in the Oak Ridge Drive address. The Barrow brothers and Jones opened fire, killing Detective Harry L. McGinnis outright and fatally wounding Constable J.W. Harriman. Parker opened fire with a BAR as the others fled, forcing Highway Patrol Sergeant G.B. Collar to duck behind a large oak tree. The 30 caliber bullets from the BAR struck the tree and forced wood splinters into the sergeant's face. Parker got into the car with the others, and they pulled in Blanche from the street where she was pursuing her dog Snowball. Ah, Snowball. The surviving officers later testified that they had fired only 14 rounds in the conflict. One hit Jones on the side, one struck Clyde, but was deflected by his suit coat button.
God, that's gotta be a badass ricochet.
Right? And one grazed Buck after ricocheting off a wall. The group escaped the police at Joplin, but left behind most of their possessions at the apartment, including Buck's parole papers, which were 3 weeks old, a large arsenal of weapons, a handwritten poem by Bonnie, and a camera with several rolls of undeveloped film. Police developed the film at the Joplin Globe and found many photos of Barrow, Parker, and Jones posing and pointing weapons at one another. The Globe sent the poem and the photos over the newswire, including a photo of Parker clenching a cigar in her teeth and a pistol in her hand. The Barrow gang subsequently became front page news throughout America. The photo of Parker posing with a cigar and a gun became popular. Jeff Ginn, in his book, Go Down Together, The True, Untold Story of Bonnie and Clyde, noted, Don Dillinger, I cannot talk today. Don Dillinger had matinee idol good looks, and Pretty Boy Floyd had the best possible nickname. But the Joplin photos introduced new criminal superstars with the most titillating trademark of all, illicit sex. Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker were wild and young, and undoubtedly slept together. The group ranged from Texas as far north as Minnesota for the next 3 months. In May, they tried to rob the bank in Lucerne, Indiana, and robbed the bank in Okabena, Minnesota. They kidnapped Dillard Darby and Sophie Stone at Ruston, Louisiana, in the course of stealing Darby's car. This was one of several events between 32 and 34 in which they kidnapped police officers or robbery victims. They usually released their hostages far from home, sometimes with money to help them return. Stories of such encounters made headlines, as did more violent episodes. The Barrow gang did not hesitate to shoot anyone who got in their way, whether it was a police officer or an innocent civilian. Other members of the gang who committed murder included Hamilton, Jones, Buck, and Henry Methvin. Eventually, the cold-bloodedness of their murders opened the public's eyes to the reality of their crimes and led to their ends. The photos entertained the public for a time, but the gang was desperate and disoriented. Oh, wait, I read that wrong. Discontented. My bad.
English language is not either one of our first languages, apparently.
Apparently not. As described by Blanche in her account written while imprisoned in the late 1930s, with her new notoriety, their daily lives became more difficult as they tried to evade discovery. Restaurants and motels became less secure. They resorted to campfire cooking and bathing in cold streams. The unreviled, round the clock proximity of 5 people in one car gave rise to vicious bickering. Jones was the driver, and when he and Barrow stole a car belonging to Darby in late April, he used that car to leave the others. He stayed away until June 8th. Barrow failed to see warning signs at a bridge under construction on June 10th while driving with Jones and Parker near Wellington, Texas, and the car flipped into a ravine. Sources disagree on whether there was a gasoline fire or if Parker was doused with acid from the car's battery under the floorboards, but she sustained third-degree burns to her right leg, so severe that the muscles contracted and caused the leg to draw up.
Yeah.
She'd been burned so bad, none of us thought she was going to live. The hide on her right leg was gone, from her hip down to her ankle. I could see the bone at places. Parker could hardly walk. She either hopped on her good leg or was carried by Barrow. They got help from a nearby farm family, then kidnapped Collinsworth County Sheriff George Corey and City Marshal Paul Hardy, leaving the two of them handcuffed and barbed wired to a tree outside Eric, Oklahoma. The three rendezvoused with Buck and Blanche and hid in a tourist court near Fort Smith, Arkansas. Nursing Parker's burns, Buck and Jones bungled a robbery and murdered Town Marshal Henry D. Humphrey in Alma, Arkansas. The criminals had to flee despite Parker's grave condition.
Could you imagine the pain that she was in? I mean, Jesus.
I guarantee you she wasn't giving up the Pootenanny while she was doing all that.
I don't know. You never know, stupid sometimes.
Oh, honey, just lay me on my good side.
Yeah.
Have you seen outside lately?
Huh?
Like the clouds are getting darker, and according to our wonderful weather apps here,
Is it? Are we getting rain again?
and
Apparently, yeah.
rain starting in 43
April?
minutes.
Yeah.
It's only going to rain for a couple hours, but still.
Well, it looks like until 11. We just get so.
Oh, goody. All right, because I'm going to Amarillo on Wednesday. It's supposed to freaking rain. Yay. Yay me. It's going to rain on me the whole damn time I'm driving, which is fine. I don't care. It is what it is. Give me a bag of pork rinds and a couple of cans of Red Bull. Fuck it. I'm good.
In July 1933, the gang checked. God, I don't know why. I've been drinking water since we got back from the movie.
You need to start investing in some liquid IV.
I do.
Actually, you know what? I got some stuff today. It's not liquid IV, but it's a hydration aid. After we get done recording and everything like that, I'll hop in the car and I'll bring it to you.
Okay, cool. In July 1933, the gang checked into a Red Crown tourist court south of Plain City, Missouri, and it considered.
It consisted of 2 brick cabins joined by garages, and the gang rented both.
To the south stood a Red Crown Tavern, a popular restaurant among
the Red Crown Tavern.
The Red Crown Tavern among Missouri highway patrolmen. And the game seemed to go out of the way to draw attention. Blanche registered the party as 3 guests, but ordered Nell Holster could see 5 people getting out of the car. He noticed that the driver back into the garage gangster style for a quick getaway. Is that really a term?
Gangster style?
Yeah.
I just always, I always refer to it as combat parking. You back into a parking spot.
Yeah. Okay. Blanche.
There are people out there that pull into a parking spot. I don't know. I don't get it. Anyways, continue.
Blanche paid for their cabins with coin rather than bills, and did the same later when buying 5 dinners and 5 beers. The next day, Hollister noticed that his guest had taped newspapers all over the windows of their cabin. Blanche again paid for 5 meals with coins. Her outfit of juniper riding breeches. What the hell? Oh, okay. By the way, just to let everybody know, juniper trousers are for like horseback riding. Little tidbit you learned today. Yay. Also, also attracting attention, they were not typically attired for women in the area. And they were showing ankles. That's what it was.
Harlots.
I know. And eyewitnesses still remembered them 40 years later. Which reminds me, I was talking about to one of my coworkers about what because they all ask, hey, what are you doing for the weekend? You got 3 days, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, I'm going to go see Top Gun, which we saw. Great movie. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But I also told them, I was like, yeah, I'm also got to do an episode about Bonnie and Clyde. They're like, oh yeah, my I think his grandfather, when he was in Burt, met Bonnie and Clyde. A little bit of interesting tidbit. Hauser, the Captain William Baxter. Oh, Hauser told Captain William Baxter of the Highway Patrol, a patrol of his restaurant, about that group. Burroughs and Jones went into town to purchase badges, cracker, cheese, and a sulfite. Oh, aspirin.
Yeah.
To treat Parker's leg. Yeah. The only reason why I know what that is because I end up watching a lot of cow videos. And that's what they use to after they get done, like.
Yeah, it's sulfa powder.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used it as a clotting agent. It was also used during World War II by medics.
Yeah. The druggist contacted Sheriff Holt Colfer, who put the cabin under surveillance. Colfrey, had been alerted by Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas law enforcement to watch out for strangers seeking such supplies. The sheriff contacted Captain Baxter, who called for reinforcements from Kansas City during an armored car, including an armored car. Sheriff Coffey led a group of officers toward the cabin at 11 p.m. armed with Thompson submachine guns. In the gunfight which ensued, the 45 caliber Thompson proved no match to the Clyde's 30 caliber bar. Stolen on July 7th from a National Guard armory at Eden, Oklahoma. The gang escaped when a bullet short-circuited the horn and on the armored car. And the police officer mistook it for a ceasefire signal. They did not pursue the retreating Burroughs vehicle. The gang had evaded the law once again, but Buck had sustained a bullet wound that blasted a large hole in his forehead, skull bone exposing his injured brain. And Blanchett was nearly blinded by glass fragment in both her eyes. Good Lord. Did he? I don't think he survived.
Spoiler alert, he did.
Did he really?
Yeah, because okay, so when they got into that gunfight at that, amusement park, right?
Yeah.
Barrow, Bonnie, and Jones escaped on foot, but Buck was shot in the back, right? Yeah. Glass shards blinded his wife because she got glass shards in both of her eyes. But Buck had that gaping wound in his forehead. It exposed his brain. He was talking and eating, but the blood loss was just so big that Jones and uh, Clyde, they dug a grave for him. But when they got into this, when they got into that firefight with the law enforcement, um, they were captured by the officers, the husband and wife were. He actually died of his head wound and pneumonia after surgery 5 days later at King's Daughters Hospital in Perry, Iowa.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's so fucking weird what we can survive at times.
Well, you've seen photos of Civil War soldiers with holes in their faces.
Well, look at White Death.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, his whole entire he had what is his left side that was almost caved in
Mm-hmm.
because of a grenade that blew up next to him.
Yeah.
Still, I still think that is probably the world's greatest sniper ever.
Wrong. It was a female who sniped for the Soviet army or the Russians during World War II.
Hmm.
Yeah. Bad woman right there, dude.
Yeah, there's a lot. Man, we could go on like history. I was. I know we're getting off track again, but
So I was just
I
about to
was actually
say
thinking. I was actually,
we're reverting to old form.
yeah. Uh, but I honestly was thinking of doing history episodes, but right now we just have too much on our plate,
Yeah. Way, way, way,
and
way, way,
we
way
don't
too
get
much.
we don't get. I mean, uh, Dan Cummings that does time suck and everything. He went from 3 episodes to 2 episodes because he couldn't handle it because he's finally actually going on tour on his comedy tour. So you can only
Yeah.
do like 2 episodes uh, a week.
Yeah. But okay. So let me see here. For the next 6 weeks, the remaining perpetrators ranged far afield from their usual area of operations. West to Colorado, north to Minnesota, southeast to Mississippi, yet they continued to commit armed robberies. They restocked their arsenal when Barrow and Jones robbed an armory at Platteville, Illinois on August 20th, acquiring 3 more BARs, handguns, and a large quantity of ammo. By early September, the gang risked a run to Dallas to see their families for the first time in 4 months. Jones parted company with them, continuing on to Houston, where his mother had moved. He was arrested there without incident on November 16th and returned to Dallas. Through the autumn, Barrow committed several robberies with small-time local accomplices, while his family and Parker's attended to her considerable medical needs. On November 22nd, they narrowly evaded arrest while trying to meet with family members near Saros, Texas. Dallas Sheriff Smoot Schmid, Deputy Bob Alcorn, and Deputy Ted Hinton lay in wait nearby. As Barrow drove up, he sensed a trap and drove past his family's car, at which point Schmidt and his deputies stood up and opened fire with machine guns and a BAR. The family members in the crossfire were not hit, but a BAR bullet passed through the car, striking the legs of both Barrow and Parker. They escaped later that night. On November 28th, a Dallas grand jury delivered a murder indictment against Parker and Barrow for the killing in January of that year, nearly 10 months earlier, of Tarrant County Deputy Malcolm Davis. It was Parker's first warrant for murder. Now, on January 16th of 1934, Barrow orchestrated the escape of Hamilton, Methvin, and several others in the Eastham breakout. The brazen raid generated negative publicity for Texas, and Barrow seemed to have achieved what historian Phillips suggests was his overriding goal: revenge on the Department of Corrections, or the TDC, for those of us who know in the state of Texas.
Or was in.
Barrow gang member Joe Palmer shot Major Joe Croson during his escape, and Croson died a few days later in the hospital. The attack attracted the full power of the Texas and federal government to the manhunt for Barrow and Parker. As Croson struggled for life, prison chief Lee Simmons reportedly promised him that all the persons involved in the breakout would be hunted down and killed. All of them eventually were, except for Methvin, who preserved his life by turning on the gang and setting up the ambush of Barrow and Parker. The Texas Department of Corrections contacted former Texas Ranger Captain Frank Hamer and persuaded him, rather, to hunt down the Barrow gang. He was retired, but his commission had not expired. He accepted the assignment as a Texas Highway Patrol officer, secondarily assigned to the prison system as a special investigator, and given the specific task of taking down the Barrow gang. Hamer was a tall, burly, and taciturn, unimpressed by authority and driven by an inflexible adherence to right, or what he thinks is right. For 20 years, he had been feared and admired throughout Texas as the walking embodiment of one riot, one ranger ethos. He had acquired a formidable, now, the one riot, one ranger ethos, that's kind of cool. We'll dive into that here in a little bit. He had acquired a formidable reputation as a result of several spectacular captures in the shooting of a number of Texas criminals. He was officially credited with 53 kills and suffered 17 wounds. Prison boss Simmons always said publicly that Hamer had been his first choice, although there is evidence that he first approached two other Rangers, both of whom declined because they were reluctant to shoot a woman. Starting on February 10th, Hamer became the constant shadow of Barrow and Parker, living out of his car just a town or two behind them. Three of Hamer's four brothers were also Texas Rangers. Brother Harrison was the best shot of the four, but Frank was considered the most tenacious. And on Easter Sunday, April 1st, 1934, at the intersection of Route 114 and Dove Road near Grapevine, Texas, which is now Southlake. Grapevine used to be a lot bigger. Anyways, Highway Patrolman H.D. Murphy and Edward Bryant Wheeler stopped their motorcycles thinking a motorist needed assistance. Barrow and Methvin or Parker opened fire with a shotgun and handgun, killing both officers. An eyewitness account said that Parker fired the fatal shots, and this story received widespread coverage. Methvin later claimed that he fired the first shot after mistakenly assuming that Barrow wanted the officers killed. Barrow joined in, firing at Patrolman Murphy. During the spring season, the Grapevine killings were recounted in exaggerated detail, affecting public perception. All four Dallas daily papers seized on the story, told by the eyewitnesses. A farmer who claimed to have seen Parker laugh at the way that Murphy's head bounced like a rubber ball on the ground as she shot him. The stories claim that police found a cigar butt with tiny teeth marks, supposedly those of Parker. Several days later, Murphy's fiancee wore her intended dress to his funeral, attracting photos and newspaper coverage. The eyewitnesses' ever-changing story was soon discredited, but the massive negative publicity increased the public clamor for the extermination of the Barrow gang. The outcry galvanized the authorities into action, and Highway Patrol boss L.G. Ferris offered a reward of $1,000 for the dead bodies of the Grapevine slayers, not their capture, just their bodies. Texas Governor Ma Ferguson added another reward of $500 for each of the two killers, which meant that for the first time there was a specific price on Bonnie's head, since she was so widely believed to have shot H.D. Murphy. Public hostility increased 5 days later when Barrow and Methvin murdered 60-year-old Constable William Cal Campbell, a widower and a father, near Commerce, Oklahoma. They kidnapped Commerce Police Chief Percy Boyd, crossed the state line into Kansas, and let him go, giving him a clean shirt, a few dollars, and a request from Parker to tell the world she did not smoke cigars. Boyd identified both Barrow and Parker to the authorities, but he never learned Mathan's name. The resulting arrest warrant for the Campbell murder specified Clyde Barrow, Bonnie Parker, and John Doe. Historian Knight wrote, for the first time, Bonnie was seen as a killer, actually pulling the trigger, just like Clyde. Whatever chance she had for clemency had just been reduced. The Dallas Journal ran a cartoon on its editorial page showing an empty electric chair with a sign on it saying reserved, adding the words Clyde and Bonnie.
Ambush and the death. In May 1934, Burroughs had 16 warrants standing against him for multiple counts of robbery, auto theft, escape, assault, murder in 4 states. Hammer had begun tracking the gang on February 12th, which led the posse. He had studied the gang's movements and found that they swung in a circle skirting the edges of 5 Midwestern states, exploiting the state line rule, which prevented officers from pursuing a fugitive into another jurisdiction. Which that was one thing I wanted to go with on this was because of this they had of all that stuff happening during that time frame formed the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Burroughs was consent in the movements, so Hammer charted his path and predicted where he would go. The gang literally
Wait. Hold on.
itineraries circled on family visits, and they were due to see Methan's family in Louisiana. Unknown to Hammer, Burroughs had designed Metav's parents' residence as a vigilance. God, they ended up at the last part doing weird words. Rendezvous in case of their separation. Metavan had become separated from the rest of the gang in Shreveport. Hammer's posse had composed a 6-man Texas officers Hammer, Hilton, Alcor, and B.M. Manning Gold, and Louisiana officer Henderson Jordan and Precisi Morrill Oakley. Hold on.
Prentice Morrell. Prentice Morrell Oakley.
On May 21st, the 4 posse members from Texas were in Shreveport when they learned that Burroughs and Parker were planning to visit Ivy Methvin in Bovine Parish that evening. The full posse set up an ambush along Louisiana State Line Highway 154 south of Gippsland towards Sales. Hilton wrote that the lawmen were in place at by 9 p.m. and waited through the whole of the next day, May 22nd, with no signs of perpetrators. Other accounts said that the officers set up on the evening of May 22nd. At approximately 9:15 a.m. on May 23rd, the posse was still concealed in the bushes and almost ready to give up when they heard a vehicle approaching at the high speeds. In their official report, they stated that they persuaded Marvin to position his truck on the shoulder of the road that morning. They hoped Burrow would stop to speak with him, putting his vehicle close to the posse's position in the bushes. The vehicle proved to be a 4V8 with Burroughs at the wheel, and he slowed down as hoped. The 6 lawmen opened fire while the vehicle was still moving. Oakley followed first, probably before an order to do so. Burroughs was shot in the head and died instantly from Oakley's first shot, and Hilton reported hearing Parker scream. The officers fired about 130 rounds, emptying each of their weapons into the car. The 2 had survived several bullet wounds over the years in their confrontation with the law. On this day, Any other several Bonnie and Clyde wounds could have been the cause of death. According to a statement made by Hilton Accord, each of us 6 officers had a shotgun and an automatic rifle and a pistol. We opened fire with the automatic rifles. They were emptied before the car even with us. Got even with us. Then we used shotguns. There were smoke coming from the car, and it looked like it was on fire. After shooting the shotguns, we emptied the pistols at the car, which had passed us, and ran into a ditch about 50 yards down the road. It almost turned over. We kept shooting at the car even after it stopped. We weren't taking any chances. Jesus. I mean,
they just didn't want to play anymore.
I know. They were like, fuck these guys. They literally fucked around and found out. And the cops weren't playing at this point.
No, they were not. No, they weren't. Let me see here.
I'll finish it up.
Yeah.
Actual film footage taken by one of the deputies immediately after the ambush showed 112 bullet holes in the vehicle, of which around 1/4 struck the couple. The official report by the parish coroner, Dr. J.L. Wade, listed 17 interest wounds on Burroughs' body and 26 on that of Parker's. Jesus, could you imagine the percentage of that? Including several headshots. You know, kind of think about it. It probably was so decimated and everything like that. There's probably a couple of bullets that just went right through the freaking holes.
No, yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, because with that volume of fire going down range, it's just like you kind of look at it going,
you're hitting your shot twice. You're shooting your holes twice on that one.
Yeah.
Including several headshots to each and another several balls spinal column. Undertaker CF Boots Bailey was difficult embalming the bodies because all the bullet hole. God damn. I don't know why that's funny, but as soon as I read that, I was like, I literally was like, that whole cartoon thing of when they're drinking water after they get shot a couple of times, and
yes,
the fucking water just goes out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's fucked off of thinking that way, but we know me, so
we've met.
Yeah. The deafened officers inspected the vehicle, discovering an arsenal of weapons, including stolen automatic weapons, shot-off semi-automatic shotguns, assorted handguns, several thousand rounds of ammunition, along with 15 sets of license plate from various states. Hammer stated, "I hate to push the cap on a woman, especially when she was sitting down. However, if it wouldn't have been her, it would have been us." Word of the deaths quickly got around when Hammer, Jordan, Oakley, Hilton drove into town to telephone their respective bosses. The crowd soon gathered at the spot. Galt and Acorn were left to guard the bodies, but they lost control of the jolting. Curious throng. One woman cut off bloody locks of Parker's hair and pieces of her dress, which were subsequently sold as souvenirs.
The entrepreneurial nature of America.
I know, right? Hilton returned to the find a man trying to cut off Burroughs' trigger finger and was sickened by what was occurring. Arriving at the scene, the coroner reported nearly everyone had begun collecting
Sorry.
souvenirs. Such
Can you imagine walking up on that? Like, well, what the fuck are you doing?
fuck, dude.
Like cutting off his trigger finger. I don't want that shit.
What do you think? It's a fucking rabbit foot or something like that? He's not
Oh
lucky,
my god, dude! I'm just saying. Well,
dude.
what, man? Game recognizes game.
Oh fuck. Oh
Good
fuck.
God.
That is fucked off. Nearly everyone had begun collecting souvenirs such as shell casings, silver slivers of glass from the shattered car's windows, and bloody pieces of clothing from the garments of Body and Clyde. One eager man had opened his pocket knife and reached into the car to cut off Clyde's left left
Left
ear.
ear.
Could you imagine that that's your family heirloom is Clyde's fucking ear? You pass it down, it's like, all right, and we are giving.
Don't you let them some bitch long man come in here and take that shit back. Like, okay, daddy.
Could you imagine the will reading after that? It's like, okay, you get
I
the
bequeath to
the
you of
house.
sound mind and body the ear.
Of Clyde.
Clyde Barrow.
Oh man,
Wow.
fuck.
Daddy, ye shouldn't have. I know, you little ungrateful bastard.
I was loved. I was loved.
Daddy loved
HD.
me better than nanny boo boo.
Oh God. The posse towed the Ford within the dead bodies still inside to the Conger Funeral Store and Funeral Parlor in downtown Arcana,
Arcadia.
Louisiana. Primarily, embalming was done by Bailey in a small preparation room in the back of a furniture store. As it was common for furniture stores and undertakers to share the same space. Well, they have boxes.
And now you know.
Yeah. Could you imagine nowadays? I mean, everything's cardboard and everything like that, and they still going on. And it's like, what'd you put them in? Oh, we got lucky. We got one of those big
We got a refrigerator box.
refrigerator box. God. God damn. Same space. The population of the Northwest Louisiana town reported swelling from 2,000 to 12,000 within hours. Curious thralls arranged by train, horseback, buggy, and plane. Beer normally sold for 15 cents a bottle, but it jumped to 25 cents. And sandwiches quickly sold out. Burroughs had been shot in the head with a 35 Remington Model 8. Henry Burroughs identified his son's body, then sat weeping in his rocking chair in the furniture section. Jesus. H.D. Darby was an undertaker at the McLaren Funeral Parlor, and Sophie Stone was a home designer agent, both from the nearby Runston.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them came to Acadia to identify the bodies because the Burroughs gang had kidnapped them in 1933. Parker reportedly had laughed when she discovered that Darby was an undertaker. She remarked that maybe someday he would be working on her. Darby did assist Bailey in the embalming. Jesus, that's dark. All right, buddy.
All right. Let me see here.
Funeral and buried.
Yeah. All right. So Bonnie and Clyde wished to be buried side by side, but the Parker family would not allow it. Her mother wanted to grant her final wish to be to be brought home. But the mob surrounding the Parker house made that impossible. More than 20,000 attended Parker's funeral, and her family had difficulty reaching her graveside. Parker's services were held on May 25th, or May 26th, rather. Dr. Alan Campbell recalled that flowers came from everywhere, including some with cards allegedly from Pretty Boy Floyd and Don Dillinger. The largest floral tribute was sent by a group of Dallas City newsboys. The sudden end of Bonnie and Clyde sold 500,000 newspapers in Dallas alone. Parker was buried in the Fish Trap Cemetery. Although her body was moved in 45 to the New Crown Hill Cemetery in Dallas, thousands of people gathered outside both Dallas funeral homes, hoping for a chance to view the bodies. Barrow's private funeral was held at sunset on May 25th. He was buried in Western Heights Cemetery in Dallas next to his brother Marvin. The Barrow brothers share a single granite marker with their names on it in an epitaph selected by Clyde, gone but not forgotten. The American National Insurance Company of Galveston, Texas, paid the life insurance policies in full of Barrow and Parker. Since then, the policy of payouts has changed to exclude payouts in cases of death caused by any criminal act by the insured. The 6 men of the posse were each to receive a 1/6 share of the reward money, and Dallas Sheriff Schmid had promised Hinton that this would total some $26,000. But most of the organizations that had pledged reward funds reneged on their pledges. In the end, each lawman earned $200.23 for his efforts and collected memorabilia. By the summer of 1934, new federal statutes made bank robbery and kidnapping federal offenses. The growing coordination of local authorities by the FBI, plus two-way radios and police cars, combined to make it more difficult to carry out a series of robberies and murders than it had been just months before. 2 months after Dillinger was killed on the street in Chicago. 3 months after that, Floyd was killed in Ohio. And 1 month after that, Babyface Nelson was killed in Illinois. Parker's niece and last surviving relative is campaigning to have her aunt buried next to Barrow.
The members of the posse came from 3 organizations: Hammer, Galt, were former Texas Rangers, then working in the Department of Corrections, the DOC.
Department of Corrections.
We just call it TDCJ. Hilton and Kern were employees of Dallas Sheriff's Department, and Jordan and Oakley were sheriffs and deputy of Belvine Parish, Louisiana. The 3 distrusted one another and kept to themselves, and each had its own agenda in the operation and offered different narratives of it. Simmons, the head of the Texas DOC, brought another perspective, having effectively commissioned the posse. Schmid had tried to arrest Burroughs in Sowell, Texas in November 1933. Smith called halt, and gunfire erupted from the outlaw car, which made a quick U-turn and sped away. Smith's Thompson's machine gun jammed at the first round, and he could not get off the first shot. Pursuit of Barrow was impossible because the posse had parked their cars at a distance to prevent them from being seen. Hammer, the posse discussed calling a halt, but the 4 Texans vetoed the idea, telling them that the killer's history and always been shot and way out. They're always shot their way out, as had occurred in Plaint City, Dexville Park, and Sawyer. When the ambush occurred, Oakley stood up and opened fire, and the other officers opened fire immediately after. Jordan was reported to have called out to Burroughs. Alcorn had that Hammer called out, and Hilton claimed that Alcorn did. And another report each said that they both did. These conflicting claims might have been colleagues attempting to divert the focus from Oakley, who later admitted firing too early, but the mere speculation. In 1979, Hilton account of the saga was published posthumously as Ambush, the real story of Bonnie and Clyde. His version of Melton's family involvement in the planning and execution of the ambush was that the posse had tried Melton's father, Ivy, to a tree the previous night to keep him from warning off the couple. Hilton claimed that Hammer made a deal with Ivy. If he kept quiet about being tied up, his son would escape prosecution for the two Grapevine murders. Hilton alleged that Hammer made every member of the posse swear that they would never divulge this secret. Other accounts, however, placed Ivy at the center of the action, not tied up, but on the road, waving for Burrow to stop. Hilton's memoir suggested that Parker's cigar and the infamous cigar variety had been a rose, and that it had was retouched as a cigar by darkroom staff at the Joplin Globe while they prepared the photo publication. Gwynn said the same people who knew Hilton suspected he would became delusional late in his life.
Now, they did have 11 victims, including 9 law enforcement officers during their 2 years on the run. The first one looks like it was John Napoleon, or J.N. Butcher, or Busher, of Hillsborough, Texas, murdered on April 30th of 1932 in Hillsborough, Texas. Deputy Eugene Cecil Monroe, or Moore, of Ataka, Oklahoma, murdered August 5th of 1932 in Stringtown, Oklahoma. Howard Hall of Sherman, Texas, murdered October 11th, 1932 in Sherman. Doyle, I need to change my contacts out. Doyle Alley Myers of Johnson of Temple, Texas, murdered December 26th, 1932 in Temple. Deputy Malcolm Simmons Davis of Dallas, Texas, murdered January 6, 1933. Detective Harry Leonard McGinnis of Joplin, Missouri, murdered April 13th, 1933, Joplin, Missouri. Constable John Wesley West Harriman of Joplin, Missouri, April 13th, 1933, in Joplin, Missouri. Town Marshal Henry Dallas Humphrey of Alma, Arkansas, was murdered June 26, 1933, in the same town. Prison guard Major Joseph Croson of Huntsville, Texas, murdered January 16, 1934, in Houston County, Texas. Patrolman Edward Byron Ed Wheeler of Grapevine, Texas, murdered April 1st, 1934, near Grapevine, Texas. Patrolman Holloway Daniel H.D. Murphy so that's what the H.D. stood for, Holloway Daniel, of Grapevine, Texas, murdered April 1st, 1934, near Grapevine. And finally, Constable William Calvin Campbell of Commerce, Oklahoma, murdered April 6th, 1934, near Commerce, Oklahoma. Now, the posse never received the promised bounty on the perpetrators, so they were told to take whatever they wanted from the confiscated items in their car. Hamer appropriated the arsenal of stolen guns and ammunition, plus a box of fishing tackle, under the terms of his compensation package with the Texas DOC. In July, Clyde's mother, Humie, wrote to Hamer asking for the return of the guns. "You don't ever want to forget my boy was never tried in no court for murder, and no one is guilty until proven guilty by some court. So I hope you will answer this letter and also return the guns I'm asking for." There's no record of any response. Alcorn claimed Barrow's saxophone from the car, but later he returned it to the Barrow family. Posse members also took other personal items, such as Parker's clothing. The Parker family asked for them back, but were refused, and the items were later sold as souvenirs. The Barrow family claimed that Sheriff Jordan kept an alleged suitcase of cash And writer Jeff Gunn claims that Jordan bought a barn and land in Arcadia soon after the event, thereby hinting that the accusation had merit, despite the complete absence of any evidence to the existence of such a suitcase. Like, my money, what money, Now, the car, Jordan attempted to keep the car, but Ruth Warren of Topeka, Kansas, the vehicle's legal owner, sued him. Jordan relented and allowed her to claim it in August of 34, still covered with blood and human tissue. The engine still ran. God, you gotta love a Ford, right?
Yeah.
Despite the damage the vehicle took during the ambush, Warren picked up the car in Arcadia and drove it to Shreveport, still in its gruesome state. From there, she had it trucked to Topeka. The bullet-riddled Ford became a popular traveling attraction. The car was displayed at fairs, amusement parks, and flea markets for 3 decades, and once became a fixture at a Nevada racetrack. There was a charge of $1 to sit in it. Okay. In 1988, a casino near Las Vegas purchased it for about $250,000. And as of 2022, this year, the car and shirt Barrow was wearing when killed are displayed at Primm Valley Resort and Casino in Primm, Nevada, alongside Interstate 15. Barrow's enthusiasm for cars was evidenced in a letter he wrote from Tulsa, Oklahoma on April 10th, 1934 to Henry Ford. Quote, "While I still have got breath in my lungs, I will tell you what a dandy car you make. I have drove Fords exclusively when I could get away with one. For sustained speed and freedom from trouble, the Ford has gotten every other car skinned. And even if my business hadn't been strictly legal, it don't hurt anything to tell you what a fine car you got in the V8.
Could you imagine if that was their marketing tool for a while?
Like, our cars, so badass, the Barrow Gang was murdered in it. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I really don't want to go into the gang and family members, but you know,
I would suggest that too.
You know, there was one here. Jones, you know, he had left Barrow and Parker 6 weeks after the three of them evaded officers in Dexfield.
Mm-hmm.
He reached Houston, got a job picking cotton. He was soon discovered and captured. He was returned to Dallas, where he dictated a confession in which he claimed to have been kept a prisoner by Barrow and Parker. Some of the more lurid lies he told concerned the gang's sex lives. And this testimony gave rise to many stories about Barrow's ambiguous sexuality. Jones was convicted of the murder of Doyle Johnson and served a lenient sentence of 15 years. He gave an interview to Playboy magazine during the excitement surrounding the 1967 movie, saying in reality it had not been glamorous. He was killed on August 4th, 1974, in a misunderstanding by a jealous boyfriend of a woman whom he was trying to help. Methven was convicted in Oklahoma of the 1934 murder of the Constable Campbell. He was paroled in 1942 and killed by a train in 1948. He fell asleep drunk on the train tracks.
God damn.
Although some of them have speculated that he was pushed by someone seeking revenge, his father, Ivy, was killed in 1946 by a hit-and-run driver. Parker's husband, Roy Thornton, was sentenced to 5 years in prison for burglary in March of 1933. He was killed by guards on October 3rd of 1937 during an escape attempt from Eastland Prison. So, I mean, the whole thing was really romanticized.
Yeah. I love Highwayman. The Bonnie and Clyde movie was, but that was like 1967. So, but it really, that whole situation and everything was, in my opinion, yes, nowadays it stuff like that is still dramatized to this day.
Yeah, I mean, it's dramatized, it's romanticized, and you would can you imagine what social media would have done back then?
God. Well, they probably might have gotten caught a little bit faster. Because surprisingly,
be that as it may,
criminals,
they Yeah, they might have gotten caught faster, but the public court of opinion. I mean, you've got women who are just head over heels in love with the Boston Marathon bomber.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
But that's always been the case.
it always has been. But you know, I'm sitting there from the standpoint of with the way that society as a whole kind of views not necessarily the criminal element, but look, I mean, think about it like this. If a criminal gets killed by police, all of a sudden that person's a hero. They should have never been killed. You know, like, well, that being the case, they should have not been killed. However, if you're going to shoot at cops, don't be too surprised when you catch one between the eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
I mean, well, my always thinking on, and I've talked to my daughter on this several occasions on stuff like this, is the basic thinking of just because everybody's talking about what's going on, wait until all the evidence is out.
Exactly. I mean,
because you find out that the people like the Ruby Ridge, a prime example. And one of these days, I want to do an episode over Ruby Ridge.
yeah.
And Ruby Ridge in certain communities and everything is high on like the government. What happens with the government interferes on your land and everything like that.
Yeah.
That guy was an asshole.
He was. But, you know, and another thing that I kind of find funny, but especially about this day and age of social media, is that it doesn't matter what the prevailing news story might be for that particular cycle. The same group of people wear so many different hats. They're either legal experts, constitutional scholars, foreign policy experts, or military advisors.
God, it's so fucking
or even better, doctors.
Yeah,
they're forensic pathologists, and they know better than everybody else.
Yeah, and it's like even if you go in and read the actual data and everything of all the stuff that's supposed to go on, and we can't say the word, but the pandemic that we actually had,
yes, exactly,
a couple of years ago.
Pandemic, very good.
But in all reality, all this stuff should have been squished a little bit faster with simple knowledge and truth of what was going on and everything like that.
2 words: herd immunity.
Yeah,
but I digress.
Now
I think we should probably wrap it up. Yeah, as soon as we get off of camera, I'm going to grab that hydration stuff. I'm gonna run it by your apartment, and then yeah.
But
a little programming note for our angry faithful. David and I are we've laid the groundwork. We have a special episode that we are trying to get arranged for later in the week. I was thinking Wednesday, but no, because I'm going to be in Amarillo. So probably Thursday, maybe Friday. I really want to
just get with him.
Yeah, I'll get with him. I want to give our special guest a chance to prepare.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very special episode.
Yeah,
it's gonna be kind of a one-off for us.
Because we don't want to repeat ourselves on
we don't want to. Yeah, we don't. And it's gonna be,
which we'll probably end up talking about this kind of subject like throughout the years.
Right. But the thing of it is that as far as our listeners are concerned, whether you be loyal or passive, it doesn't matter. This is going to be a very serious episode. And while we may still try to laugh, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not taking the subject matter seriously. It's just a coping mechanism for people in the veteran community. But be prepared for that, and we'll let everybody be
And we'll
surprised.
tomorrow we're gonna do another episode, and it's gonna be one of our fun ones. We need to go over Top Gun.
Yeah, and Monday we will still do an episode of Nerd Sports, and
Yeah.
you will get your weekly installment of Joke Time with Colin. So, past that, man, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and bounce out of here, and I'm gonna run by your apartment real quick. I'm gonna drop that hydration stuff off for you.
All right.
And
And I'm David Dickerman.
I'm Johnny Skelton.
Thank you all for watching Psychos and Sociopaths.
Victory!
Nerds. Oh man,